Welcome to Missouri Politics. Legislative session winding down. Campaign season heating up. We're here with two guys in the middle of both of them. Representative Mike Haffner from Cass County. Welcome back to the show.
Scott, I appreciate you having me.
And Mike Cierpiot from Lee Summit. Welcome back. I like the seersucker. Looking very nice. I'll bet the junior United States Senator likes that seersucker too.
I don't think he has any choice. He has to.
Got to come up with it. Let's talk. You're both here because one of the biggest bills that ended a lot of controversy last session and a lot of controversy this session. There was a landfill going to go in South Kansas City, right on the Jackson-Cass County line. You both took an interest in this and really did the work to bring your colleagues around. I think there's a lot of folks that thought there's no way they're going to pass a bill that affects one development project in one part of Jackson County. But you rolled your sleeves up, and at the end of the day, the vast majority of your colleagues came along. Senator, how'd that come about?
Well, it came about because last year in the Senate, the bill had so many troubles. I had a lot of people reach out to me and ask me if I would help. I went and talked to Representative Haffner, and he helped me. Mike has done an amazing amount of work in that chapter. In fact, in the future, I think he plans on rewriting that solid waste chapter and make some great improvements because it hasn't been revisited for a long time. We tweaked it this year to save our area, but the chapter needs some work. And Mike helped me understand all the nuance of that because as most things are in this business, it's very complicated. And he did the work. He introduced me to the people that know the stuff, helped me understand what we needed to do. And I can say clearly that this would not have happened without Representative Haffner helping me sort through this stuff.
You have been at the tip of the spear on this from the beginning. Tell me how you got this done.
Well, Scott, it's all about the team. But the bottom line, it comes down to a foundational concept that goes right back to the Constitution, and that's property rights. And I'm a student of history, not only on the military side, but also on the political and economic side. And our founding fathers called this the primacy of property rights because it represents economic opportunity. It's a foundational issue, not only in Cass and Jackson County, but for the entire state of Missouri. And I was not going to let up on this fight.
But you had people not from that don't even care about this issue. They could have easily gone the other way. You brought them along. How'd you bring them along?
Well, what we did is we started just like we do with the majority of my bills. We put the team together. And I'm especially appreciative of what Senator Cierpiot has done because you've got to bring the chambers together. But it all starts with good research. We reached out to industry experts, not only around the Cass County area, but across the state. We took and had a roundtable discussion with the Department of Natural Resources. We brought together the Senate. We brought together the House. And we did it alongside leadership, too. And that's what makes it successful.
I tell you, I probably got more Facebook messages, Twitter direct messages, emails about this particular issue, that there was more community engagement on this issue. There's issues that impact the entire state that this dwarfed in their reaction. I was impressed by the community response here.
Well, and that all starts at the grassroots level. And we did this with town halls, but I give credit to the folks in Jackson and Cass County because as we engaged the community, they came up here. They wrote individualized messages, and I told them, Jefferson City hasn't seen this in a decade. This is what makes a difference, the people's voices.
Senator Cierpiot, there is a piece of this, though, that you talk about property rights. These folks, they were going to buy the land. They were going to own it. Property rights, in rural Missouri, we get a little nervous. You want to do what you want with your property, but property rights, or you want to tell me what to do with the property I bought. There were some folks that I don't think they cared a great deal about what you're doing, but from an intellectual level thought, well, you're telling other people what to do with their land. How'd you get around that?
Well, I think I'm a strong believer in property rights. But in this particular instance, you've got the people doing the development, and then you have thousands of people who have their life savings in their homes, and they have property rights too. And people talk about changing rules in the middle of the game. The folks developing this, if it would have gone forward, would have had to ask Kansas City to change zoning in that area because right now it's zoned for residential and agricultural. And so I think anytime you've got a fight between property rights and balance, you've got to take it. And in this case, I think it's obvious that the thousands of people who have most of the net worth in their home, I think their property rights outweigh.
I thought it was a little innovative, though, because you do have some good Missouri business folks that were trying to put a business in. Mm-hmm. They were following the rules as they went along.
They were. The
state did change a law. The city of Rainwater came up with an interesting idea, right? They came up with a way to buy some of this property. I don't know the business of it, but a sizable amount of money they're spending. Mm-hmm. They'll still own this. It's property that I think could be developed. It was kind of an innovative fix.
It was, and I should stop too and give Senator O'Laughlin, the floor leader, a lot of credit. The best 2 hours I spent last year was when I brought her to the district and we drove the landfill area and around Creekmore and Raymore, because she got on board, and it wouldn't have happened without her help.
Only 2 senators could drive that track, and it'd take 2 hours. There's no other group in the world. Let's talk about going forward in session. FRA's up. It's one of those weird, acronyms that doesn't mean anything to regular folks. But if you might have hospitals in Kansas City, but you won't south of Kansas City till you get to Springfield without the FRA. The House and the Senate, somehow everything's about abortion these days. Senator, are you going to get the FRA done? If there's a nurse watching this in West Plains, is she going to have a job in July?
We're going to get the FRA done. There's no doubt about it. It may be a fist fight, but we've got to get it done. You talk about it. The hospitals that have a high Medicaid use are the ones really going to be suffering, because that's what FRA, the Federal Reimbursement Allowance, funds Medicaid. Truman Hospital would expire next weekend if we didn't have the FRA. And so we're going to get it done. Too many people, too many nursing homes, too many health clinics, the whole gamut are dependent on that, and we will get it done. I think the House is today maybe passing the Planned Parenthood bill, which I think gives us a green light for the FRA.
I saw it passed without an emergency clause.
It did.
I asked Senator Hoskins this on my midweek update. Is this too important to use as a gambling chip? Because, literally everything is about abortion to a sizable part of your caucus. Is this too big of a thing to bargain with?
Well, I think that the issue is really important. And I want to take a step back and remember that Cody Smith, we introduced this bill. This bill has been in the Senate for a while. And it comes back to relationships. Again, I think this is an integral part of where we need to go forward with the budget. I think it's important. But when we start to bargain, instead of just doing the work as legislators, that's when it causes problems.
Cody Smith, I don't think gets enough credit for the statesman-like way he's handled the FRA, not just this time, but last time. He has been no drama, none of this silliness. He has passed the FRA cleanly, and I don't know that he gets enough credit for that.
I agree with you. Cody is a statesman, just like Senator Cierpiot. He puts his head down, he goes to work, and he gets the job done.
Give me a prediction. You're going to get this done in regular session?
I believe that we will.
What do you think?
I hope so.
More optimistic. What about the budget? So the House comes through with a budget, made some changes to the governor's plan. I did notice on the floor this time, there was some things added and some amendments that probably make it a little more palatable, might look a little bit more like the finished product. In the past years, the Senate has had a big hand in this. Do you see the Senate being able to, one, pass a budget? And if not, special session, will the budget be any different if people force special session or not?
Well, Scott, I think there's a couple of things to keep in mind as we talk about the budget. Number one, we're at best talking about flat, maybe a slight increase on revenues. Mm-hmm. But when you look out 3 to 4 years, those revenues are going down. So there's a lot of talk even now in the House, and I know there is in the Senate. We're going to have to make some changes.
Well, you tell your colleagues that, because it feels like the legislatures are like lottery winners. They win the lottery, there's ARPA money, then 3 years later they're bankrupt. It feels like they're well on the way to bankrupt.
I agree with you. And we're talking about some things as to actually tracking tax credits, because the impact 2, 3, 5 years out is going to be crucial as to where we go, especially when we just passed this education bill. That's a huge price tag on the state of Missouri, and we better be prepared 3 years from now in order to handle that.
Senator, I watched the House pass this landmark bill, a bill I watched you twist arms. They almost came off when you were in the House. But then right after they spent $1 billion, they had a tax cut for $150 million. Some of this stuff, it might feel good while there's all this federal money. Federal money will be gone. Is the state ready for that?
No. Well, we're going to have to be ready for that. We've also still got 2/10 on the income tax cut waiting to be phased in off growth. And so I'm of the opinion I'm not going to vote for any tax cuts, not because I don't like cutting taxes, but we have to pay our bills. And I'm not sure in a couple, 2 or 3 years, it's going to be tough again. And I think we need to let things settle out.
What if a senator passed a groundbreaking idea? What if they come up with the budget cuts along with the tax cut?
Well, that's something people don't do.
Yes.
Cutting taxes and increased spending are easy. Raising taxes, cutting spending are hard.
Doesn't sound as good on Facebook if you have to do reality.
We always do the easy stuff, not the hard stuff. And that's true with Washington as well as Jeff City.
Prediction. The House can pass a budget. You've
Yes.
proven that. You think the Senate gets it done?
I think there's a very good chance. I, as a House member, would like the opportunity to actually spend some time and review it. We've been really pushed on that process in the past, and I think that part of it is broken.
What do you think? Can you get a budget through the Senate right now?
I think it's going to be slow and painful, but I think we will.
If there's a move to force a special session on the budget, will it be any different than the budget you would have passed next week?
It won't be a bit of difference. The thing is, we've got some people running statewide, and they get free press, and so I think they're going to have their time in the sun for doing that.
Let's talk about the school bill. I've watched this debate for a very long time. And in a way, I think you've got more and more Missourians that just get fed up with maybe the local superintendent, the local bureaucrat. I've watched the issue. I don't know. Its time feels like it's come because it's just harder and harder to defend no choice in public education. It just feels like the folks that advocate for it have the honest brokers, like a Carl Esslinger. The headwind just gets stronger all the time.
Yeah.
You think this sends a message that the establishment listens to?
Well, I think, and I use the example, Scott, that we have been very hesitant within the state of Missouri to do any type of reform to give parents choices. And that dam is about to break. And if it breaks, we can't control it.
Do you think the bill you passed this year lets some steam off? Because I think you're going to come back next year with a new governor, a new legislature, and it was going to be an extreme change. Do you think this lets some steam off it so you can do it in a more measured way?
I think we can, and I go back to Brad's Pollitt's open enrollment bill. I think that is a crucial part of how we move forward. But I'm also going to talk about accreditation and accountability. That was my bill that dealt with the APR, and that we should be measuring what matters, student achievement, student growth. I think those two bills will have the focus as we move forward, but I hope, at least from a foundational standpoint, that we can get those across the finish line as well.
I watch all the time. They add more and more stuff on teachers. To me, if you just did reading, writing, arithmetic, and maybe football, and then sent the kids home, you don't have a problem with diversity day if you just have math day, right? Why don't they just have math day?
That's one of the things, especially these suburban districts are getting more and more that way into that.
You're the teacher, not the parent.
Right. It's going into areas that I don't know why they're going to. I mean, if I was a superintendent of the Kansas City schools.
Poplar Bluff is the worst superintendent in the state by a country mile.
But if I was a superintendent of the Kansas City schools, DEI would be about the 43rd thing I'd put on my list. The first 5
things not to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But reading, writing, and the other skills seems so easy. I'm an old guy, but when I went to school, we didn't have all this other stuff. It seemed fairly straightforward.
I got a chance to speak to the Jackson County Republican last week, and I told the story about the night of the softball tournament where you were holding 2 phones negotiating. I watched you get involved in this issue. Gosh, played 2014. It had to feel good that you were a pretty much a lone wolf, one of very few at that time, pushing this policy. Now, what you've been pushing has become popular.
It's gotten much easier. I could tell during COVID, back home talking to people are just fed up. Their kids weren't in the buildings. They weren't in school. They were saying they're learning at home. I talked to a lot of parents. They said they just did not do it. And that's when people started thinking, maybe we could do something better. Most people think we have the best college system in the world, and the money follows the student. I don't know why we don't do that in K-12 also.
Interesting. Representative, Senator, congratulations on your legislation. Hope you'll come back as the political season unfolds and talk about it here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
We'll do it.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
When I take office, the first thing I'm going to do when my hand comes off the Bible is enact our Day One crime plan.
Kehoe's plan: support law enforcement, remove liberal prosecutors, crack down on illegal immigration and sanctuary cities, charge fentanyl dealers with murder.
Those things are what it takes to be tough on crime and make sure that we get our communities back.
Endorsed by law enforcement, Mike Kehoe for governor. Paid for by the American Dream PAC.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back this week in Missouri Politics. Opinion Maker panel time. Representative Dane Diehl, hot off a legislative hot streak, right?
Great to be back, Scott. Appreciate it.
Ashley Blaine Manlove, the person who's not running, I think I'm going to miss the most. We're losing you to Washington, but you're sticking around today for the show, right?
Of course.
Good deal. David Casteel from Jeffco. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
And Chad Perkins, the dulcet tones of Northeast Missouri. Welcome back to the show. IP reform, I loved it when Don Mayhew sat in that very chair and tried to tell me that this is not at all like what they did with Clean Missouri. I thought Ben Baker on the floor did a very good job of saying, hey, okay, maybe this is ballot candy, but you loved the ballot candy when it was your issue. Now you hypocrites are against it. I love the Post-Dispatch and the Star. They loved it. Now they hate it. Unless we get Missouri politics, how is this any different than Clean Missouri?
Scott, there's no hypocrisy in Jefferson City. What are you talking about? No, the fact of the matter is this. The defense we're going to use is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean,
I like straight talk.
They do it themselves.
David Casteel, before you got down here, the Democrats come with an idea. They wanted to change the way districts were done, which, fair enough, debatable idea. But they lumped in a bunch of stuff that was just distractions to get it passed. It was very good politics, and it worked. Every Republican that sat in these chairs said it was awful, dastardly, and deceitful. Now you're doing the same thing, right?
It's a subject I'm not very familiar with. I think that people should have a right to vote for IP change, and that's really all we're doing.
But should they vote for IP change? And then if you want to say, well, the illegals that aren't voting for sure can't vote, should that be another vote? And then whatever other things, should these not be individual things? And did the Supreme Court mess up on Clean Missouri when they said the Clean Missouri thing was okay?
Well, I think it's obvious that illegals should not be voting. I think it should be citizens voting, and I think it should be clear on the ballot language.
Dane Diehl, there is no illegal immigrants voting in Missouri right now. That it's illegal to do so. Putting it in the Constitution is fine. I mean, if you're going to lump these together, do you agree with Chad? Let's just admit what it is. We're taking the Clean Missouri model, and we're doing it for our own purposes.
I think that's right. In these circumstances, like Chad said, where we are here and now, I'm in agreement with that. I go back to, the geographic representation to me is a huge importance. And I think that was conveyed on the floor. Representative Banderman, went down that path and very, very articulated, what some of our concerns were. So you're right. The circumstances have changed a little bit, but I think that this is very good for outstate Missouri.
Representative, you were on this show. Every person from the Democrat perspective said Clean Missouri is the right thing to do. Is it a little bit? Are we mixing some things together? Maybe so, but it was very effective. This is the same thing. I don't remember your party having a problem when the ballot candy was on the other side.
Well, it wasn't every Democrat because I did not support Clean Missouri.
I was waiting. I didn't want to say it.
Okay. I thought that, yes, it was two completely different topics, ethics on one, gerrymandering on the other. And Clean Missouri has been very detrimental to Black politicians specifically, and the way that we can raise funds and have access to our constituents. And this is no different. I think both of them were bad ideas. And this one, I don't believe that any human is illegal because we're human. And I, as a Black woman, have generational knowledge of what that's like to be told that I'm not good enough, even though I'm working twice as hard. So I of course, don't agree with this destruction of the democratic process.
End of the day, could you make the case to the people of Missouri that it should be harder to change the Constitution without all these distractions? Could you make that case to them?
Yes.
Could you make the case on the merits, without all this silliness, that the Constitution should be harder to change?
Yes.
Could you make it without all this?
You can make the case, but it's a whole lot easier with these other things included in.
I agree with that. Can they make the case? Maybe. I think there's a very logical case. It should be harder to change Constitution.
Sure.
But I think it gets a lot easier if you throw a bunch of junk in there.
Well, since way before I even got here, we put bingo in the Constitution.
Yes.
So our Constitution is a little rickety from the jump. So
that's prediction time. Does this, with these other distractions in it, is this what goes to the public?
Yes.
Does the Senate do this?
I think so.
Do they do this?
We'll have to see. Yes.
I think you're right. If it goes on with all the distractions, does it pass?
Yes.
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say it helps. I believe it sure does.
It helps. Oh, I think it's too logical of a case to make without the distractions. That's why we have the distractions. Let's talk about a case I think is a very straightforward piece. This other stuff is, frankly, almost silliness for politics and the campaigns. You have a piece of legislation. Right now, every farm in Missouri, well, 90% of them, are made to run off of Roundup.
Yep.
The seeds, everything about a farm is made by this Roundup. Right now, the lawyers are about to put Roundup out of business in America, so you'll only have Chinese. Well, the only way you can get Roundup. And so it's so funny. I hear all these people whine and be worried about, oh, Chinese can't buy American land. Well, if we declare war on China, what are they going to do, bring dump trucks over and take it? But if they turn off the tap and they're the only people that can sell Roundup, that totally shuts down American agriculture.
Yeah, absolutely. From the agriculture standpoint, even in the last few months, there's been some conferences, there's been different analyzations of what is going on right now in the market and what that would look like if we went to that. When we have an American company, an American subsidiary of a company here,
German company.
Company, that's right. But, there's a lot of good jobs here, and they're mining it here, processing, manufacturing, doing everything here. This is the only company like this getting litigated against in the world. There's a little bit of problem to me on the sustainability point for my farm.
Chad, you're very familiar with agriculture in northeast Missouri. Without Roundup, if the Chinese lawyers come in, I mean, essentially the lawyers now working for the Chinese Communist Party. If they shut down Roundup in this country, China could end agriculture like that.
That's right. And you say it's a German company. Maybe Bayer is. I still call it Monsanto. It's still
German company.
It's still called Riverport. I don't change what I call stuff. But it's Monsanto has thousands and thousands of people employed in the St. Louis area. And the fact is, we're not looking to do anything other than say, if we put, if we're adhering to the federal standards when it comes to warning labels, things of that nature, if we're doing what the federal government says what we're supposed to do, you can't sue this agricultural company because of the warning label, because it is adhering to the federal standard. That's all we're doing.
Actually, I walked over and watched the representative do a little legislating. There was passionate arguments on the other side. Cancer, I don't know anybody in the world that cancer hasn't touched.
Sure.
I guess the question would be, is this causing cancer? Does anybody have proof of that?
Yes. And how do I know that there's proof of it? Because if you remember about 2 sessions back, a gentleman by the name of Don Rohn was losing his mind over pesticides and trying to put them on a public safety bill. And the part that he was trying to put on the public safety bill was the actual handling and processing of pesticides, because it kills people. So if Don Rohn knows that, I know everybody else knows that. And I just reject the premise of Roundup as it is. If the Chinese don't take us out, we're going to take ourselves out with this monocrop culture and using poisons instead of nature. So if the Chinese don't get us, the wildfires will, because of the soil erosion from having these shallow crops that don't keep the soil in, which is going to kill us anyway.
I think it's amazing how in politics, the most extreme right-wingers would be the ones watching this at home saying, she's right on. Yeah. David Casteel comes down to Roundup is used on every single farm. You're going to get it from America and Germany. You're going to get it from China. Which one are you going to get it from?
I'd rather get it from America, and it's also, there's a lot of contractors that spray Roundup on a regular basis. They're not coming down with cancer. There's a lot of farmers that are not coming down with cancer. Cancer is prevalent. This was a hard vote for me to take. I, in fact, called a lot of my family members who were fighting multiple myeloma. My aunt, my mom died of cancer, so I had to consider it pretty heavily. But at the end of the day, I think Dane had said it best when if we allow Bayer and the Roundup division to go out of business, then where the farmers are still going to demand use of this product, where are they going to get it from?
End of the day, you're going to have some, if I had to guess, some folks in the Senate are going to come together, and they're going to be those Chinese lawyers' best friend. What would you say to them?
I think we need to look at the precedent and what this really concerns. Go back to the bill's roots. What does it do? I think Representative Perkins did a great job. It codifies a process that we have to look to and depend on. It really only concerns, from a product standpoint, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when we're talking about cancer. But go back to what the bill actually does. And this isn't product specific. I know that it was talked about one specific product, but this bill, I think in an industry where we need stability long into the future, this bill does that. It gives a little bit of stature and standing.
So there's no stability. That's your ethics committee. I mean, at some point, you've got to be tired of looking like clowns. I mean, how much popcorn can you pop watching these people screw this up? This endless ethics investigation of the speaker totally went off the rails a few weeks ago. At some point, do you get sick of being embarrassed?
I had a friend tell me yesterday that they had a bill sent to committee back in January. It never went anywhere. I said, your bill got sent to ethics? Because, I mean, we're 7-8 months in. The fact of the matter is, there was a vote a few weeks ago, 6-2, where the majority of the group said, I don't think there's anything here.
We do not accept this report.
How come it's still going on?
Well, I think you have a crew of your staff, which you've never got a hold of. You have a crew of the Missouri Independent who's paid to make you look bad. And you have a chairwoman who's a nice person, but clearly there's a vendetta. Am I wrong?
It doesn't appear that way.
Let's talk real quick about fentanyl before we get out. You got a bill on fentanyl.
Yeah, so fentanyl is impacting every community in the country, and there's some of my side of the aisle will say, close the border, it's this or that. Well, the reality is, I think that the resources have been limited in a way that there's more fentanyl in the country than could be carried across the border on the back of somebody trying to enter the country illegally. So that means that it's coming in through trains, trucks, and ports. So we definitely have to enhance our punishments for those in possession of fentanyl in order to protect those communities and find the sources locally.
With the Manlove to win the week.
I'm going to go with the University of Missouri, wearing my black and gold, hire an athletic director that's proven to be a fundraiser, has Mizzou roots, and I think he'll take us into the future.
Did you see the new north end zone encapsulation? That's cool.
That's great.
Exciting.
From the time I was there as a kid to now, I can't get over that.
Who won the week?
Representative Chantel Nixon Clark. She even got coverage on Fox.
Look, I watched her give a powerful speech
Powerful.
on that bill. It was very powerful. Who won the week?
Dane Diehl won the week with his pesticide bill, even though he had to fight extreme opposition and convince a lot of his colleagues to vote in support of it.
It's going to be funny to watch the Republicans who hate China carry their water in the Senate. Who won the week?
The legendary Norm Stewart. It's been announced that he'll be the newest inductee to the Hall of Famous Missourians, and there's not a greater sports legend in the state of Missouri.
I've got to say, and my hillbilly dialect is going to butcher this. This is a great corncob pipe. The Mark Twain style corncob pipe was given to me by the Missouri Meerschaum. Now, Kelton's going to get on me for messing that pronunciation up. Good folks, set up in the rotunda this week. Appreciate this very much. But I have to say, I won the week. I'm going to Brian Seitz it. The Brad and John show, officially was the BJ show on KSLQ, kind of St. Charles, Franklin counties. They give me a theme song that we're going to play you out. So I'm going to Brian Seitz it and say I won the week because I'm going to do a theme show and my new corncob cut. We'll see you next week here on This Week in Missouri Politics as we play us out.
Missouri times, chilling in the heat, Scott Faughn on the beat, feeling so complete. From the cities to small towns, we keep it real, making noise in the game, can't deny the thrill. The show me state where the stories unfold, politicians and scandals that never get sold. Scott Faughn, the Missouri Times, breaking the news, shining light on corruption, exposing the blues. In the heartland, where the truth is hard to find, Scott Faughn, he's got that investigate mind, digging deep, uncovering the secret so bold. His words hit like the thunder, breaking the mold.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.